Hey, buddy, it's Tommy Hayden here, and I'm recording a quick voice memo while I'm driving. The only reason why is because today is November 26th, 2018, and 2 days ago on November 24th, I gave a great spiritual talk about love versus the ego. And unfortunately, due to some technical difficulties, the voice and video recording did not work. So if I ever do release this to the public, I just want to thank Latin Flavors Fitness in Maple Ridge for hosting the event and donating their space for us. They did a wonderful job, and we love them very much. I love them very much. They are absolutely wonderful, and if you are looking into things like Zumba and stuff like that, they are certainly a place you can check out if you so choose. So that's Latin Flavors Fitness in Maple Ridge. I know they do some Zumba stuff there as well. But anyway, in regards to the spiritual talk that I gave, Love versus Ego, a spiritual conversation, because, nothing is quite right unless you have a colon and then something else following it. You got to have a title and then a subtitle. I think that's just how it works nowadays. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the concept of the event and why I liked it. Now, personally, when I'm speaking, I like to have a sketch pad. So if you ever attend one of my talks, I'll usually have a whiteboard there, and I just like to draw on the whiteboard because personally, as somebody who is very visually oriented, it's easier for me to convey things by just sketching something out on a board than rather having to explain everything verbally, because I think that there's lots of verbal information out there in the way of podcasts and in the way of books and lectures and stuff like that. But personally, as a visual person, I like to use a visual aid. It just makes my life easier, and I think it makes the communication a little bit clearer. But I'm going to attempt to do this as a voice memo, and then we'll see how things go from there to see if I can accurately sum up what I did during the talk. So this will be a series of voice memos because I don't think I'm going to get through all this in one go, but I'm certainly willing to give it a shot. Basically, the core concept of love versus ego, the idea for doing it was because of a revelation that I had about the relationship between love and the ego, spiritually speaking. And really what I wanted to get at was the core of why our world is the way it is and why our relationships are the way they are and why we ourselves personally are have so much difficulty interacting with the world sometimes, and why the world just kind of seems upside down. And I think by understanding the core nature of the problem, we can work towards healing it. To me, it's kind of like an addict or like an alcoholic or something, recognizing the fact that there is a problem and admitting that there is a problem, and then now once that acceptance is there, then you can do something about it. I always say that acceptance is not apathy, and so when you accept something, it doesn't mean that you don't want it to be better. It just means you accept things the way that they are, and you understand that you're facing whatever your version of reality is. As in, for example, in the case of an addict, they're recognizing that they have an issue that needs to be addressed. Now they can go and address it without that first initial step of accepting the fact that they have an issue. They're never going to make any progress at all. So basically, what I was saying in the talk was about the very nature of who we are. And one of the things about me is that I have always tried to at least take a scientific methodology as much as I can in terms of spirituality, in that I'm trying to figure out what is accurate and what isn't accurate based on my own experience and based on the things that I've done to try and test things. So one of the major things that I did to really help myself understand was I started teaching myself several years ago to try and have out-of-body experiences, otherwise known as astral journeys or whatever you want to call them. And discovered very rapidly, over the course of about 6 months, when it took me to figure out how to do it, to consciously leave my body, was that obviously the consciousness doesn't exist inside the brain, because my brain is in my head on the bed, and I am floating up, several feet above my bed, and me, the person that I am, is still kind of exists 6 feet above my body. That sort of really helped kick off a journey into the exploration of the metaphysical realm, which is what I call the mind realm, where everything is first created and then brought forth into physical manifestation. And then the spiritual realm, the realm of the soul, where everything is conceived. So it's really a process of soul conceiving, the mind creating, and the body experiencing. If you really want to understand who you are, you kind of got to go all the way back to the beginning, to the source point, the origin point of all of it. And the best way to do that is to find all the mystics who have communed most directly with the source point, and find out what their experiences are, and compare and contrast all of them. Now, the funny thing is, if you study any mystic, they all have the same story in terms of what is ultimate truth. They say they all come back when they turn inwards, and they go on a journey of discovering the self. They realize two eternal truths. One is that God is everything, and the other thing is that love is all there is. And in fact, those two truths are one and the same. So if the mystics understand that love is everything and God is all there is, or vice versa, or it's all one and the same, then we understand that God is everything, God, the ever-present reality of love and consciousness. It's an infinite field of consciousness that exists in kind of a formless dimension, which is really, when I say dimension, I just mean a different frequency, a different vibrational energy. It's a very high vibrational energy, formless energy. And the only way to really discover that is to really go into the formless reality yourself. Because if God is everything, then it logically follows that there is nothing outside of God. And so, as I said in the talk, that the tendency, if you want to imagine a formless presence that is God, is to sort of picture this nebulous, floating, amorphous blob of energy floating in the middle of space. Well, there is no space because there's nothing outside of God. So God has an inside but no outside. Excuse me. And so the only way to get a concept of God is to look at him or her, or it, from the inside. So if you imagine yourself floating in the depths of this formless white space that is just white everywhere you look, this energetic, non-formed energy of love and compassion. So it's kind of like a blanket that's just all over you, that is white everywhere where you look. And so if you're kind of a formless part of that energy, and God wants to create something, such as, let's say, a physical universe, or you, or whatever, the only thing that God can do is work with the energy of love and consciousness. Because that's the only ingredient that he has. He can't pull anything from outside of himself, because there is nothing outside of himself. So he takes that high vibrational loving energy and slows down the vibration, and shifts it around and moves it till it starts joining with each other and to form matter and material. So matter is very dense, it's very slow moving, and it's kind of the final result of God's creation. It's the part of himself that we can really experience ourselves as separate from the rest of it, even though if we are inside God and made of the same stuff of God, we can never be separated from Him. We are literally, quite literally, made up of love and consciousness. And so, if you want to really, really understand that, the the uh, the if you want to really understand why God does these things, is really God as consciousness asks the same eternal questions that we all do, which is, who am I, why am I here, and what's the meaning of all of this? And if God is everything, and God is all loving, then there's nothing to really compare Himself to know Himself as who He is. So God has to create something in order to understand who He is. If God is everything, He has to know Himself as not everything in order to know Himself as everything. The example is kind of like a fish doesn't understand the concept of wetness until you take the fish out of water and they experience dryness. And when they start to dry out, they go back into you throw them back into the ocean, and now they have a better understanding of what wetness is. They say, oh, well, that was dry and this is wet. So we are by our very nature wet. And so God has to create that which is not Him in order to understand that which is Him. So in the first moments of that creation, the first thing that God does is split Himself up into separate and distinct units, which are all part of the whole, which these things are things that we call souls. Or spirits, or whatever your terminology is for it. So in that moment of creation, the very first moment of creation, in at least my creational understanding of things, is relativity is born, in that you can know yourself, the soul can know itself in relationship to other souls and to God the whole. And God can know Himself as the whole of it by comparing and contrasting Himself to and in relationship to the individuated souls that are a part of Him. So the very function of creativity, or of creation, is relativity. That is its purpose. Everything in creation is relative. That is to say that you know one thing by knowing it in relationship to another thing. So everything that you know is relative. Everything you know is subjective to the person or thing that you're thinking about. So knowing that everything in creation is subjective, it does help you to stop being so attached to what you think is right and what you think is wrong, because it's just a subjective experience. Now, the purpose of physicality is duality. The purpose of the physical universe is for us to experience relativity to the greatest degree, in that you can't know up without knowing down. You can't know left without knowing right. You can't know black without knowing white. You can't know fat without knowing thin. You can't know tall without knowing short. And all these relativistic, dualistic things are really the part and parcel and the function of a physical universe. So you can't know light without knowing dark, and you can't know gay without knowing straight, and you can't know male without knowing female, and all that sort of stuff. Without duality, there is no real, there's no ability to really understand. And with that, I am going to leave this voice memo and continue on with it another time. Hopefully that gives you a general idea of what is going on with the creation aspect of the universe and why the universe is the way it is. And then next time I record a video or a voice memo, it will be in regards to hopefully a little bit more about love and the ego, and some of you who are following along might even start to understand or guess what I'm going to say in the next voice memo. But I'll leave that for now, and next time we'll talk a little bit more in depth about love and the ego and how they relate to each other. And for that now, that's about it. Thanks.